Hello, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Julie.
So this is a review of American Psycho, a killer game by Renegade Game Studios. It's for ages 14 and up, and we'll talk about that part in our review here. 2 to 5 players. It takes about 45 to 60 minutes. And you sure you don't want to be called Christy?
I'm very
or
sure.
Sabrina?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. I like the name my parents gave me.
So this is a trick-taking game based around having meetings. If you've seen the movie, you know, again, I don't know why anybody would get this if they hadn't seen the movie. But during the movie, they have one-upmanship, like here's a better haircut, better suit, better business card, and that's what you're doing here, is you're having meetings, trying to collect cards to score the most points by the end of the game. And so here are your meeting cards, and there are 16 of these, and you'll shuffle these in a game with higher player counts, but in a 2-player game, you'll play with all of them. And you have 4 suits. You have routines. As you see, this is his morning routine here, with little or no alcohol. You have assets, business cards. Let's see Paul Allen's card. That's one of or it even has a watermark. And then here is the reservations, trying to get into Dorothy.
Yeah.
Now, in a 2-player game, you will not play with cards 1, 2, and 3. And I'll show you the little chart here. So you'll play with less cards depending on the number of players. And the cards go from 1 to 15. So this would be removed in a 2-player game, and when you watch how to play and play through, that's what you will see. You also have special cards in the advanced game, and each player would get one of these cards, and one would go in the deck. And so in a 5-player game, you'd play with all of them, because each person would have one card, and it would be one in the deck. And this can change if you want to get victims or not get victims, if you want to keep confessions. So it changes the end game scoring. But in the playthrough, we do not play with the advanced cards. They don't recommend you play with that in the first game. So no advanced cards. And then you have songs, murder weapon, and victims. Now, in order to get a victim, you must collect a set. So when you lose a meeting, you might want to lose a meeting on purpose so that you can get victims. So you get a song. Next time you lose a meeting, you get a weapon. The third time you lose a meeting, you get a victim, and then the weapon and song go back. So you basically have to collect a set of 3 to get your victim, and then you start over again, getting a song and weapon. Now, in an advanced game, you would turn over the song, and it could be something that you can trigger immediately or in a future meeting. And if you use it, you turn it back over. In a weapon, when you collect a card that has a 5 or a 6 on it, for instance, you get to trigger that effect, and then you turn it over. And then when you get your third card, you put those cards underneath, because that way, you don't know what the next card is, right? But in the basic game, you don't do those special effects. Now, why would you want victims? Because if you have the most, it's worth positive points. If I have 3 victims and Julie has 1, I get 3 points, and Julie would get minus points. In the advanced game, there would be different scoring conditions based on the special cards, and it has something special here, for instance. But in the basic game, if you have the most victims, it's worth positive points. If you have the least victims, minus points. If you're tied, they're both worth minus. Now, why do you have confessions? Each player will get one of these, and one would be put in the deck randomly. This allows you to basically avoid the positive and negatives of a meeting. And then at the end of the game, you're able to get rid of one victim. That can be a good or bad thing depending on what you're doing. So if I'm going for the most victims, I probably want to play my confession card before they're scored. But if you don't want the most victims, then this is a good thing to keep at the end of the game. Now, how is scoring calculated? Well, you'll see here, depending on the suits that you have, after every meeting, if you're the winner, sometimes if you're the loser, there'll be different conditions. But depending on the conditions of the meeting, somebody will get a card. And you'll put them in your collection, not in your hand. And so at the end, assets, you choose odd or even. They're numbered in a 2-player game, 4 through 15. So if I have a 4, an 8, and a 10, I'd get 6 points because I'd have 3 even cards. Now if I have an equal number of odd and even, then it doesn't matter. If I have 2 even or 2 odd, I'm just going to get 4 points. Business cards, it's the value of the lowest ranked card. So Julie, during the playthrough, she had a really high rank. You had the 15, right? But she had a 7, and she couldn't get rid of that 7 out of her collection. So she only scored 7 points. But if she was able to have gotten rid of...
a 12, too.
She also had a 12, too, yeah. But say she was able to get rid of her lowest business card, she could have gotten 15 points. But instead, she scored 7. Reservations, highest minus lowest. So I had the 15 and the 6. So 15 minus 6, I was able to get 9 points. And in the routines, you want a run. So I kept some cards back.
You got a good one.
Right. Because at the end of the game, you'll have usually at least 4 cards left. And you hold them back, and you add them to your collection. So I was able to add 3 cards to my collection to get a run of 4. I think it was a run of 4.
4 or 5,
4 or 5.
Like that, yeah.
And so I had 4 cards in my run, and it was 4 times 3, 12 points.
That's great.
So how are meetings done? Well, first off, when it comes to setup, it says right here, each person will get 11 cards. Unless in a 5-player game, you get 10 cards. So we'd have a confession. We'd shuffle that in. So I get 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. Julie would get 3, 6, 9. And these aren't shuffled from the playthrough. And so this would get shuffled in, okay? And then we would look at our hand, and you'd see what cards we have, and we play from our hand. And we don't show, we do play open on the playthrough, but in a normal game, you wouldn't show the other player what you have. So this is our hand. And this is the chainsaw. This marks who is the leader of that round. In a 2-player game, this doesn't change. In a 3-player game, I would be the leader. I would be the leader of the round, of this round, and this is where you keep track of rounds. It's round 1. I'm the leader of that round, so I will play a card. Okay. Then our son David would go next, lead the next meeting, and then Julie would lead the next meeting. That's the end of that round. Then David would be the leader of the next round and get the chainsaw. In a 2-player game, though, this doesn't change hands. I'm a leader, Julie's a leader. This just shows us when we go to the next round. Okay. At the end of each round, you get as many cards as the number of players minus 1. So we each get 1 card. In a 3-player game, each person would get 2 cards, and this deck would be reshuffled. Now, why is this here? Well, I'm going to lead the first meeting. I flip up the card. This is just flavor text here. Okay. You flip it up, and the leader of the meeting chooses A or B side, and the conditions for getting a murder card. Remember, the murder card you'll get will be a song. The first time you get a murder card, the second card you get would be a weapon. The third time you get a murder card, you'd have these 2 in your collection. You get a victim. You keep the victim, and you put back the song and the weapon. But let's take a look. I would choose A or B, depending on my hand. Okay, lowest rank in the killer suit wins. Now, what is a killer suit? I'm glad I drew that card. In a 2-player game, there'll be 1 card that will be flipped up after the lead player chooses A or B side. The first time you flip up a card, that determines what the killer suit is. So like in a trick-taking game, routines are trump, which means if you can't follow the lead card, the suit, you can play trump and win. But if you can't follow the lead suit, so let's say I play asset, Julie has no assets. Okay, she doesn't have these.
I play this.
She could trump and win, but she doesn't have to follow the lead card if she doesn't have them. So she doesn't have to trump if she doesn't have to, if she doesn't want to. So say she didn't have any assets, she could play the 14 or the 11. But because I led with assets, this is the lead suit, I would win. Now, if she has if she did want to win, sometimes you don't want to win the meeting, but if she really wanted to win the meeting, she could play the 12 and win. Okay? And then she gets to choose. Now, in a 2-player game, this card does not impact who wins or loses. It's just a card for the winner to choose as a possibility. Okay? In a 3-player game, this would be our son David's card. Okay? And he would have played trump, so he would have won. Okay? But in a 2-player game, this is just a card that the winner can choose, because you can't choose your own card unless there's something that happens here that says you can. But before we even do that, as the lead player, I have to decide which side I'm going to play. And I won't even know what this is yet. Lowest rank in killer suit wins. Must lead and follow from your collection. So that's good if you want to get rid of bad cards from your collection. So I'm going to do this one. Lowest rank in killer suit wins. If none, lowest rank in lead suit wins. Now we would have flipped this up. We would know. And you only do this once in a two-player game. Normally, though, what changes suits is this little rule in bold here that can be easily, I mean, it's there, but without there's no playthrough in the book. Usually in a 3, 4, 5-player game, at the start of each round, whoever has the chainsaw selects or changes the killer suit by marking it on the board. So in a 3 or more player game, I would be able to choose suit because I have the chainsaw. In a 2-player game, the first card we flip up becomes a suit, but only for that first round and the beginning of the game. At every round in a 2-player game, you're always going to flip up. Every meeting, you're always going to flip up a card, but it doesn't change the suit. What can change the suit are these meeting cards. All right, so we know that the killer suit is routines. Lowest rank in the killer suit wins. If I lead with the killer suit, I will. I'm going to lead with my 5. And Julie's following suit. So I did play the lowest rank wins, so I get my 5. I can't choose my own card, though. So I can choose the 4 or 6. Now, unfortunately, if I'm going for a run, I don't want to choose the 4 because these are going to be discarded. I'm going to choose the 6, and this goes in my collection. Hopefully I can get the 7 and the 8 in future turns. So this goes away. I did win that because that's the conditions. I can't choose my own card. And then if you played the low rank, so I also get a song because I won. Now I could have lost on purpose. Same situation. Lowest ranking killer suit wins. I don't want to play the killer suit. Maybe I want to get rid of, maybe I'm not going to go for odd assets. I'm going to go for even assets based on the scoring conditions. I'm going to lead with a 13. Now Julie must follow suit. Julie doesn't want to win. Well, lowest rank in killer suit wins. If none, lowest rank. So Julie does want to win. So you want to win this, huh? You don't want to play your 14? Mm-mm. Julie could play her 14 and not win. Okay, so she does want to win because of the conditions. So she played the lower card, so she won it. She can choose the 13 or the 4. And because she has the 5, she's going to probably go for a run. So she chooses the 4. Does not go in her hand, goes in her collection. And she has the 5. She's going to try to get that 5 there too and create a run of routines. So that's why Julie chose in that particular meeting to win so she can choose that 4. And then this would go away.
I also get a song too.
Yeah, you also got a song because you won. Because according to that card, if you play the lowest rank. So it's an interesting condition here. Lowest rank wins, but also lowest rank gets a murder card. And then she'd be the leader in the next meeting. She'd flip up. Julie would choose either A or B side. And then we'd play this round. And then we'd get a card each. The round marker would go down. And then we'd play basically 16 meetings. And whoever has the most points wins using these scoring conditions. So watch how to play and play through.
That was a good little mini review of how to play though, which was, you did a good job, honey.
Thank you. When I say I'll be like Patrick Boone, your compliment was sufficient.
Thank you. I don't know what to say to that. But now we're going to give you our review, and you know how we do it. We give you our pluses, minuses, and neutrals, and then we'll tell you how we ranked it on the BGG scale, and I go first. I thought the card quality was good, and David knows more about cards than I do, but I thought they were really good. You know, they seem to be put together nicely, and they're fun to touch, and you know, they're a little slick and everything.
Well, they shuffle well, but since you asked, they're not linen, which means they're not foil stamped. So they're not going to hold up as well as other cards. They don't have that foil stamp linen feel to it. They call it linen but it's actually a foil stamp.
I just like how they
So they
feel.
are easy to shuffle. They're nice, but if they would have had the foil stamp, they'd be high. They're average.
Okay, well,
quality.
I thought they were good.
No, well, they're good. It's fine. But since you asked, I wanted to explain it.
Okay, I found this, and I still kind of find it to be a confusing trick-taking game. I'm used to like playing spades and hearts, and it's very, black and white. This is like there's other things thrown in, and it can get. It's just really thinky and.
Right. Every meeting, you're going to have different conditions.
Exactly.
Okay, and you'll see that when we play. We play with all 16 cards. But that's part of the strategy.
Covered my face. I made this a neutral because the theme may turn people off. Some people are into this kind of gore and this kind of thing, and other people might be like, "Oh heck no!" And you definitely don't want young children to see this because it is disturbing. The art is, well, as I said in the last one, the art is very disturbing. And it does take kind of long to play, even with 2 players. And yes, I know we were teaching it to y'all when we did our how to play and play through, so it was long, but it's long even when you're not teaching someone how to play, because you're really having to, at least for me, having to really read the cards of if you want to choose the A side or the B side. And a game of spades or hearts doesn't take that long, even with 4 players to play. This one does take a little bit longer.
Well, the playing time is accurate.
Yeah, it is. It is. But like I said, the art is just, and I don't think anyone under the age of 14 should be seeing this stuff. And if you guys have seen the movie, you know that it's a very disturbing movie as well. So it's right on with the movie.
Well, the images that they picked. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's see what I have to say.
Okay.
Now, you may think that I don't, well, it's going to affect my rating. This could have been more. If you look at how many negatives there are in neutrals, okay, I'll explain here in a minute. So it is a thinky, trick-taking game. Mm-hmm. Now, why is that neutral? Well, as what Julie was saying, you got to be in the mood to want to play. This would take at least a half hour when you get used to it. Mm-hmm. When you're not used to it, 45 minutes.
Easy.
And then with more players, at least an hour. Especially when you're teaching it, it could take more than an hour if you're playing with new people.
Yeah.
Because you're going to sit there. So thinky's a good thing. If you want to play a game, there's that with this much strategy. There is a lot of strategy
There
here.
is.
But like you said, if I want to play a trick-taking game, I might not want to think this hard. So you got to really be in the mood for this.
You can't be tired. At least I can't be tired to play this game.
So that's why it's neutral. Because sometimes you're in a mood for a game with this much strategy, sometimes you're not. Mm-hmm. The game length, neutral. 2 players, half hour. We can play this game now in a half hour. We played it about 5 times. But at first, it could be a turnoff for some people, like what you said. Mm-hmm. I would play Pinochle or play Hearts, and it's over really quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Average screen grabs and art. So what that means, sometimes, as you saw here, it has screen grabs. But even then, is it done for artistic purposes? Because they're not. We have the 4K edition of this movie. This is not 4K screen grabs, so they probably changed it in some way to make it look.
Yeah, it's like it was painted over.
It's like it has filters in it.
Yeah.
And with this intellectual property, they only have the rights to do Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
If you
no, they have his fiance.
Hang on, and let me explain. They do not have the rights to do her likeness.
Oh, I don't know where you put those.
Where did I put those cards?
I don't know where you put them, sweetheart.
Oh, they're right here.
Oh.
Okay. So this is like the Willy Wonka game. Let me try to get to one here.
Find the fiance.
So who's the actress again?
Reese Witherspoon.
So notice it's a creepy looking version of the fiance
because
they don't have Reese Witherspoon's likeness rights. So when they acquired this intellectual property, for some reason they didn't want to pay for it, or they could not get it to get her rights.
Which is too bad. She's so cute.
So, for instance, that's supposed to be William Dafoe.
Oh.
If you've seen the movie, you know it is. So some of it's hand-drawn like this, and some of it's screen grabs. But even the screen grabs is done in an artistic way that makes it look kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's why I say it's average. It could have been more. I don't know. It's weird. So that comes down to the commitment to the IP. Could they have acquired the likeness rights? Was it worth it for them to do it? Maybe they couldn't, or was it worth it for them to do it? Inadequate rule book. So when the link to the how to play here wasn't working, I had to contact them, and they thanked me for letting them know that it wasn't linking properly. But even then, the how to play wasn't adequate. And so you got to read this very carefully. They needed to have a how to play in here of a full turn, or several meetings in a 3-player game, because this here, it does state how the killer suit is applied here, but you need to see it in action for it to sink in.
Need samples.
And then in the 2-player variant, it's just worded in a way that if you're not an experienced wordbook reader, so this comes down to the game, like the game The Warriors by Funko. There's a reason why we had a lot of views on that video, because people bought that game that are not hobby gamers. Think, cool, I want to play The Warriors, and then they get the game, and they try to learn it from the rule book, and not being hobby gamers, they will struggle. People who, American Psycho is a cult movie. People are going to see this, oh cool, card game, let's get it. And then they look at the rule book, I don't understand how to play.
Yeah.
If they're hobby gamers, yes. So that's why, and then when they talk about commitment to the IP, you either go in all the way and really show how psycho he is. So it's like, first off, this should not be. I wouldn't even let a 14-year-old play this.
No.
So this should have been 18 and up.
Yeah.
Commit to it and really show how psycho he is. Show the movie for what it is, and don't be afraid to be that to show the movie, because anybody younger than 18 shouldn't be playing this anyway.
No, they shouldn't.
Because it's disturbing enough that you wouldn't want somebody under 18 to play, but they're not willing to commit to the full R-ratedness of this movie.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's why it's kind of a letdown in that way. So, audience, again, I don't understand who the audience is.
Definitely not kids.
So you say 14, so 14, 15, 16, 17, I wouldn't allow them to play unless you're parents and you allow them to watch the movie. Okay, maybe. But how small of the audience, of all the people who love this movie,
very small.
How many of them are ages 14 to 17? So you don't worry about that group. So then you worry about the group that are really into the movie. So if that's the case, you needed to commit really to the theme, okay? Have a better rule book. And then, because it's so thinky, people who are into this movie, should you make it more complicated than hearts, spades, and pinochle? Well, pinochle is complicated.
No, I can't play that game.
Yeah, you could if we played it a lot. I grew up with that game.
I didn't. I grew up with hearts and spades.
No, being Polish, we grew up with it. Okay. But, so you shouldn't have made it more complicated than hearts and spades. Because most people who are into this movie are not hobbyists.
Yeah.
Are there hobbyists into this movie that will dig it? Yes. But it's a really complicated trick-taking game. Maybe they'd rather play Magic the Gathering. See what I'm getting? They might play a game that's like, maybe I'll play this, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll play something else that I'm more into.
Yeah.
So it's a weird position to be in. So the mechanic abstraction, okay, so we're having meetings, and that does come across, you're trying to one-up, play the higher card, but sometimes you want to lose a meeting and win or lose a meeting or win the meeting to avoid getting murder cards. The scoring does come out at the end of the game, having the highest business card and having reservations. That's kind of cool right there. But the whole point of the meetings with Patrick Bateman is that he was always trying to fit in and be the most important guy in the room.
Yep.
So it's a little weird. From a game design standpoint, I don't know what you would have done differently, okay? The game does play well. From a trick-taking aspect, it's a good trick-taking game. It's just, are you going to want something this complex as a American Psycho fan? Okay, ask that question.
Right.
Decent components. The cards could have been better. The board is annoying. Why did I say that? Because when you are, you need to mark which the killer suit is, what round it is, right? They should have made the board bigger, because when you are flipping up these cards, you can move things like I just did. You got to use kid gloves to avoid knocking things off. So either make it bigger, or made it so that these were punched out where you have little holes, and you can mark it in a way where the stuff won't fall out.
Yeah.
So I can see when somebody's playing this this move, say, oh, what round was it again?
Yeah.
And then you might have to go back and count how many cards. So, and this board, they could have made it bigger to fit it in the box. If you look at the size of the box.
The box is huge.
They could have made it bigger.
Yeah.
Instead of questioning the size of the box. They made the box this big so they could get proper shelf space.
Oh.
All right, so let's take a look now at how we rank it based on BGG scale. So here we go.
Oh, you said 6 too?
Yeah, we both said 6. And we don't know what each other is going to rate it. We'll play it if we're in the mood.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a complicated trick-taking game that takes longer than we want. You got to be in the mood for it. Enough of the theme does come out, but you saw all my negatives. It could have been more, but I'm not too sure what you could have done to make it more. You could have. I think if they would have made it simpler trick-taking, maybe committed more to the R-ratedness of the movie, and not of a. It's like what they did with the Warriors game from Funko. They left out a certain warrior because of the things you said in the movie. Yet they left the other warriors in there. The lead is so bad to the girl in the movie that you could have left him out for that reason too. So Funko wasn't willing to commit to the warriors. I don't think they were. Well, here they have a really disturbing cover, right? But some of the lines, they avoided some of the more disturbing lines in the movie. So it's kind of like one of those halfway things. I don't know. They were probably debating back and forth of how R-rated to make it and how complicated to make it. And who knows who won out on the argument. But I think they're going to have a hard time. Non-hobbyist American Psycho people will have a difficult time with this game.
I agree.
And then even hobbyists will be like, do I really want to play a game this complicated? For us, we're going to keep it in our collection because we're fans of the movie and we're hobby players.
Okay, let's put it this way. He's more of a fan than I am. I wouldn't put it on. I mean, I'd watch it if you put it on, but I'm not going to suggest it.
Right. And in terms of the game, I mean, it's if you want to play a really thinky trick-taking game, you'd be like, hey, let's play American Psycho.
And I won't suggest this either.
Yeah. So that's why you got to be in the mood. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. It's an interesting situation.
Yeah.
They'll know from their sales if they made the right call on its complexity and commitment to the theme.
Yeah.
For us, we're lending a hand by doing a how to play and playthrough video. And if you are a fan of this movie and you're a hobby player and you're okay with a complicated trick-taking game that takes longer than other trick-taking games, then you should get this.
Yes.
If any of those things you would say no on,
then don't get it.
You might want to think twice.
Yeah.
But anyways, we are going to keep it.
Yep, we are.
And I will play it with people who are fans with the movie.
Yes, of course.
All right. So thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.